So I would love to introduce you guys to Virginia. If you guys weren't here for our Soul Sessions Part 1, please feel free to go back. I have it up on my page. Virginia has it up on her page as well. And check it out. She is amazing. She is one of the founders of Love Camp, and you definitely need to check her out. I am going to find her and bring her up to the stage. Hi, Virginia.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I'm going to change my filter just to have some fun tonight.
Do it, girl.
Love it.
How
Thank you
are
so much. I'm doing great, and I'm really excited that you've created this beautiful space. It feels so like taking me back to New York Cafe slightly. I love it.
I'm so glad. I feel the same way with you here. And I know that our audience, I already told them, if there's something that they feel and they've been through or they acknowledge it resonates, please use fire symbols, to use the comment section, to add any questions or comments that they may have. Make sure you get your pen and your pencil out. Take notes. Please go back and DM us after and let us know what stood out to you. I would love, love, love to hear that. So I'd like to start off with trauma, and what trauma is. Mm-hmm. So like the definition of trauma is an emotional response to an event. Immediately after an event, you might have shock, denial, that type of stuff can set in. And there's even long-term reactions to trauma, any type of trauma. It stays with us. And what are some type of traumas that you've come across or you think are relevant to a lot of our listeners?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a specific type of trauma that would be relevant. It's like maybe the outcome of trauma that I have observed and even experienced, right?
Right.
So, and in trauma, really, like there's different ways of experiencing trauma. If we define the different ways first, we can go into that and then go into like what the outcomes are and then how it gets managed, right? Or support, or gets supported.
Exactly. Yes,
but
definitely.
There's different type of traumas. I was having a conversation with a family and marriage therapist not too long ago. Her name is Jersey Garcia. She's actually in Florida. And we were talking about the different type of traumas. And there's physical trauma, which everybody is familiar with, right? It's just like this commonplace to know about physical trauma. But there's traumas that we don't even realize are traumas. Financial trauma. Have you ever heard of that?
Absolutely, especially trauma. All of us with last year, the pandemic and stuff.
Yeah, that's true in the pandemic. But even in relationships, like there's financial trauma that occurs. Definitely, I hear what you're saying, though, in the pandemic, right? Like, we've had this thing that happened outside of our control in the economy, right. And everyone got, lots of people got furloughed. In the context of relationships, there's financial trauma that occurs too, where maybe there's one person that has control of the assets and the money, and they're the one saying how much, you get to spend, or even controlling your own money, right? Like that's a form of abuse, right? Where you don't have the freedom, both of you, to be on equal footing around what goes on with the money. The other type of trauma, emotional trauma that occurs, which obviously that's probably what we'll touch on more in this conversation. The physical traumas that occur, and those are like the three main ones that I would like to focus on, really.
Yes, and to touch on what you're saying, all of those type of traumas, a lot of people go unhealed, holding this trauma in for so many different reasons. Sometimes it's really hard for people to admit to what they've experienced, or they're embarrassed to admit to what they've went through or gone through with someone, or allowed to occur or allowed to happen for however amount of time. And I just want to say that unhealed trauma wreaks havoc. If you don't recognize it, if you don't try to figure out a way to heal that trauma, then it's going to wreak havoc and tumble into all different aspects of your life. And I feel that like having any type of trauma, it feels like a lump in your throat, right? Where you're just trying so hard to push it down and push it in when all it wants to do is come out. Yeah. And so I feel that, facing that unhealed trauma, all different types of trauma, definitely is necessary in order to heal and move on. Do you have any tips on how we can face trauma?
Well, first of all, you got to slow down and even pay attention to what is occurring in your life. Like, what are you doing? Where are you? What are you doing? What is it that you want to experience in life? And what is in the way? What is in your space? Okay. And let's
write that down, guys. What are you doing?
What are you currently doing? Yes. What are you currently doing? And really pay attention, because sometimes we're operating like, in autopilot. You know what I mean? Like, has there ever been a time where you're driving and you're like, how did I even get here? I don't even remember how I got here. You're like so absorbed in your mechanical way of experiencing life that you're not even slowing down to pay attention to how you're experiencing life. Like, are you even happy? You look happy, but are you even happy?
Right. What's really going on inside?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could tell you, like, I definitely was, 11, maybe I would say 8, 9 years ago. I was great. Peachy keen. Everything was good. And I pretended everything was good. Like, I didn't want to address what was going on internally. Why would I want to do that?
Exactly. Right. That's like what I was saying earlier. And someone brought up a good point. It said it also depends on when the trauma takes place, your childhood or your adulthood. So that also is unhealed trauma, which at one point you do have to ask yourself still, what are you doing? Not so much in the sense of maybe what it is you're doing with your life, but what are you doing with that pain and that hurt that is that lump in your throat still there? What are you doing with that? Are you facing it? Are you confronting it? And then it's like what are you doing with your life? If you know that if you're dealing with this trauma in the moment, what are you doing about that to face it and confront it? And then also I feel like a lot of times in relationships, people might form trauma bonds and they might not even know what that is. Can you have like a better definition of what a trauma bond is? Because I know that you'll say it way better than me.
Well, it's kind of like it's like you're stuck on a specific way of experiencing life. Like, you don't see that there's possibility beyond that, so you keep doing the same thing, and you keep choosing the same person, even though it might not be the person that you need to. And I mean, when it's defined, actually, trauma bonding is when you actually, commit to being in a relationship with somebody, whether it's a friendship or just, an intimate, relationship with somebody that there is trauma. You experience trauma with them and you still keep coming back. Like, there is this something that's still pulling you there and staying in that space.
You're bonding over something that is not good for you.
Right. And then there's probably, typically, yes, it's true. This person that was sharing about it depends when the trauma happens. But sometimes trauma builds over time. Like, you have this experience as a child. Sometimes as children, we don't even remember the traumas that we experience, right? If you're less than 5 or 6 years old, your brain is not always remembering the context of what took place, but you remember the feelings that you experienced, and you create a meaning around what took place for you, even as a young child, like 3 to 4 years old. And as you grow up, this memory of the feeling that took place, maybe not with details, maybe with some details of what took place, but not all the clear details or the true details, because we create from our imagination even more. We add to the story. And as a child,
right,
it's like,
especially with time.
Yeah, with time, that story starts to build up. You start to actually reinforce with other traumas that you experience in life. And it kind of, it reinforces that story, right? What took place. I don't want to call it a story, because when you're experiencing it, it's like, this is not a story. I didn't make it up. This is what happened. And, I get
story.
It's your story. Exactly.
Your story.
It's your story. And so it's like over time that starts to build up. Sometimes it's a familiar place. It's a familiar place to be. And I think what really what gets to take place in a situation like that is just really, sometimes it's getting sick and tired of being sick and tired of doing the same thing, experiencing the same thing. And it's not necessarily a road where it's going to be comfortable. It's not, because it's taking yourself out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
really what it's about.
And actually, that's like a perfect segue to talking about letting go, right? Because we can be grieving a relationship that we're still in. We could still be in that situation and we know it's over. And we're there and we're grieving what we know is done, but yet we are bonded to this person, so we don't know how, to move on. But when we do break up, it's like a mourning. You're mourning a death. You're mourning a death of that relationship. And there's a quote that says, a breakup is the death of an imagined future. When you break up with somebody, everything that you had planned together, everything that you imagined your future to be changes and is kind of like ripped away from you. So those daily habits that you were so used to having, because we as humans are creatures of habit. And once our habits are taken away from us, it's a mourning.
Yeah.
It's like this pain inside of us that we need to learn how to grow from.
Yeah.
But the question is, how do we know when it's time to let go?
Well, it's like I was saying, it's like when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, especially when you are in like a relationship that's like a trauma bonding, right? That means that there's some abuse in that relationship that's existing, whether it's emotional, physical, financial, or any other form of abuse. There's something that you're experiencing there that's just not, it's not a healthy bond. That's why it would be called a trauma bond. So I think it really does take like actually getting tired of being in that situation. You really be committed. It doesn't take your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your cousins, whoever, your best friend, even if they're a stand for you to transform your life. They're a stand for you to be in some other space. And despite that, it really does take you saying, you are the CEO of your life. You're the key holder of what goes on next. So it really does take you saying, you know what? I'm done. Like, this is it. I need to create a change in my life. And letting go, I think, Natalie, you were mentioning, you could even be in a relationship and be experiencing the death of a part of a relationship. It doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship actually ends. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes people actually die, the old relationship dies for both of them, and they commit to creating newly in a new space, right? They clean up their mess, whatever.
Right, like an evolution.
Yes, like an evolution. Like they clean up their lack of integrity, or one person's lack of integrity, and either one of them, right? They might be cleaning that up and deciding, you know what, let's recommit, let's start brand new. This could happen to people that are in a relationship for 10 years and all of a sudden start brand new, like a brand new relationship together, the same person, because they both have decided that they're going to clean things up and restore integrity with each other. And sometimes one person does doesn't really see that they need to do that. They're like, no, they're committed to continuing to be whatever they decided to be all that time. And the other person says, you know what, I'm not committed to living a life like this. And I get to decide how I choose to live my life. And it takes that step first.
Yeah. And I feel like those are boundaries. It goes back to the first question you asked. What are you doing? You know, what are you facing with? And really sit down and figure it out. What are your boundaries? What are you going to say no to? Where is your line? And when do you feel that somebody has crossed it? What are you going to do about it? Because I feel if you don't have boundaries, then that leaves the door open for a lot of people to guess who and what you are and how far they can take it. So absolutely, you have to be the first one to say, this is what I'm about and this is what I want. And this is where I want to go. But I feel that sometimes people have a hard time of like understanding or knowing a way to let go of somebody that they still love, but that they know is not good for them.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said, once they make that commitment, like, all right, I know that I need to move on. If they know that they need to move on, like the other person's not committed to restoring integrity in their relationship and it's time to move on, then it really is about them sitting down to do the work and creating the environment that supports them. And when I mean environment, it's not just like how their home feels. That's helpful too, though. Like you might want to even redecorate your home to start a brand new life for yourself.
Right.
You might want to reevaluate it.
Like
exactly. No, seriously. Exactly.
You know?
Seriously. That I'm so serious about that because it really like primes your psychology to be present to, you know what? I'm starting brand new. I'm opening a new chapter in my life. And this is how you get to show yourself that you're committing to that new chapter. And it's just small steps like that, right?
Right. It's changing your surroundings just a little bit, just an inch even.
An inch and then another inch and then another inch, like evaluating even the people that are around you.
Yes.
Who are the people that you get to keep close to you? Are they supporting you? Are they allowing you the space to heal, right? Because we have people, I mean, I know I have people that love me to death, but if I was going through something or when I was going through something, they were the ones saying, you should stop doing this, you should stop doing that. And so I had to be mindful of, okay, those people love me. This is how they love me, but it's not helping me right now. I get to create how that works for myself. I get to say, you know what? Thank you so much. I know that's how you show me love, but I actually need a little bit more of this. So, you know, if you want, you could be there for me like this would be helpful for me. You know what I mean? You get to start creating rules in your life. And I think the biggest thing is actually using our voice. If you think about it, what gets people into spaces of trauma bonding? I think most stories I've heard, it's that they didn't speak up for themselves.
Right. Communication, communicating what you are, what your expectations are, what your boundaries are in that relationship with that person.
Yeah. And I would say one of the things to support people here is, because sometimes we don't think about this part, like what stops us from actually speaking up? What is it that gets in the way of us actually sharing what it is we want to see happen in our life, or creating boundaries, right? Having the communication on, this is what works for me, this is what doesn't. I love you to pieces, but you know, I need our conversation to work like this, or our relationship to work like this. What gets in the way of that? That is part of the going into the deeper work of healing, right? Discovering what in your past, there's been things that have happened to you that have created this habit of not speaking up, of not creating the conversations as they're needed in your life.
Because people, I feel they're afraid of not being accepted. I feel that, acceptance is a major thing for us. We want to be liked. We want to be loved. And the fear of not being liked or loved keeps us from being honest with ourselves a lot of times. And it's that lump in your throat is letting it out, not swallowing it anymore. For so long, I feel like we just walk around with this lump in our throat. We know it's there, but we don't let it out. So I think that first step is letting that lump in your throat out. and letting people know who and what you are, like you're saying. Not letting go of a relationship after it's over can be self-sabotaging. You're self-sabotaging yourself. You're cheating yourself out of where you should be.
Yeah, and now that you say that, like the first thing that I thought of when you were saying that is like not letting it go is self-sabotage. And what holds us back from letting it go? Are you believing that it's possible to find somebody else? Like, I'm going to bring God into this conversation, okay? God, what does God want from me right now, all right? I am sure that God would want you. God has something planned for you. Okay. So if you're right now going through something like this where you're doubting, like, what's my next step? Is there something else available? Because our beliefs do play a role in stopping people from saying, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm going to move on. Right. Or enough is enough. I'm going to have the conversation. Because sometimes people hold it in for so long that their partner might not even know what they're going through. Right?
Yes, you could be on a journey all by yourself. You could be alone in a relationship. Just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean that you're not alone. Sometimes you're very alone in a relationship. And again, that's where communication comes up. You know, if you have that lump in your throat, how are you going to communicate? How are you going to let anything out?
Yeah. And that's why I say, like, I mean, if you're a person of faith, I'm bringing God into the conversation. God, how can you help me open this up? Open up my third chakra, okay? My speaking chakra. Because whatever it is that you have to say, it needs to be said then. It needs to be said to start the conversation, to see what you can create in your life. If you stay silent, then you don't create. You don't get to create in silence.
Absolutely. It's just manifesting anything at all in your life. Like, you have to speak it to manifest it, for it to come into a realization. You know, like everything starts from thought. And the minute that you speak onto that thought, it starts, maturation occurs. And the same thing goes in a relationship. Speak your truth, speak your peace, so that can manifest itself as well. I think that also, like, when a breakup occurs, the pain and letting go is saying goodbye to the past, the present, and the future. Because when you lose someone or that aspect of the relationship ends, you build your days with this person, and we're creatures of habit, and then our days have to change, our habits have to change. And if we have to face and confront that, it's not a good feeling. It's not easy for us, because we're creatures of habit. And so losing someone who was part of your story can hurt your present because of that. It forces you to change your daily routines and habits, and then we're left to create new ones by ourselves. And future pain, because of the future that we imagined, has died. It's not going to be what we thought it was going to be. And so we have to mourn that thought that we had. Being with someone that we build a fantasy of a future together, and letting go of things that haven't yet happened. And then we're left with the question of, who am I now? Who am I now that relationship is done? How do you think that somebody can go about answering that?
Wow. You know who you are? Let's start with, you're a child of God, okay? And I'm going to continue that with, you get to be in a space of creating your life all over again, actually. You get to be in a space of getting to know yourself deeply. You get to be in a space where you get a deeper relationship with God, actually. Because you don't have anything else occurring in your space. You get to really be in the know of you. And there's a space of discovery that gets to take place. It's amazing, actually. I mean, in retrospect, I know, like, it might be easy for me to say, but somebody that's going through it right now, you're like, what are you talking about, Virginia? Are you serious? Like, but yeah, there gets to be a space of discovery. You get to actually sit and discover more about yourself, and what you want to have in your life, and how you can be a stronger stand for what you want to create in your love life, in all areas of your life, but in your love life as well. And it takes time, right? Like, it does take time to really battle between the emotions and what I'm sharing with you. The emotions of, like, how could this be happening? Now I have to start all over. I had imagined my life. And Natalie, like you were sharing, there is a space of grief. And so expect that, if you end a relationship, there is a moment of actually grieving your dreams that you had with this person, in this relationship. There is a space that gets to be honored, just like we honor the death of a person. You get to, honor the death of your dreams, your love dreams. And then once you create that, and I would even say, if you want, create a ritual around it. We have rituals for deaths of people. You can even do one for that. And really, like,
absolutely. That is so true.
Yeah, I don't think it gets talked about enough. Like, rituals are so important, because then it's like you actually are doing a practice to honor your, to be in integrity with what you're experiencing in life, right? Like, we don't get to step over that. Sometimes it's like, oh, hurry up and just feel better already.
Move on with it.
Move on, get over it, right? Like,
right.
No, you get to actually create a space and honor it. And just and decide, you know what, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to do, whatever it is that supports you in that space to grieve, and then you get to a space where it's like, gradually you start experiencing something different in your life. But you got to be present with, like, this is okay to be in this space. And it's not always going to feel nice. There's going to be days you can't believe your feelings. You don't believe your feelings all the time. Don't get stuck in like, oh, but I'm feeling like, no, it's okay, because that's fleeting too. Your emotions are moving like this. Stay focused on what what you want to honor for yourself in that space.
Yes, definitely. Our emotions change, and then just in that moment in time, we're gonna have to go through it like any other type of growth. You're working out. It doesn't feel good all the time. You're doing something great for yourself, but it hurts. And this is no different. This is just the same. You have to expect that there's going to be pain, and it's not going to be easy, uncomfortableness, because it's the unknown. But that too, like you said, is fleeting, and we'll get through it. You just have to make the conscious decision of, this is my end goal. What I want in the end is XYZ. How am I going to get from where I am now to where I want to be? And like the old quote says, there's no way around it. You have to go through it. You have to go through it. There's no way around the raw feelings. If you don't, then that turns into the trauma that we were talking about earlier. That becomes unhealed trauma that we end up taking with us, like Erykah Badu says in Bag Lady. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're going to have so much baggage, it can't take you anywhere. You know what I mean? So that you have to confront it and face it. And always know that there is always some me in the we. Right? You don't lose that. You don't lose who you were in the relationship. You don't lose the aspect of yourself because that relationship is over. You take yourself with you. There is always some me in the we. And I think that's important for us to remember when we're feeling, sad or depressed or just a heavy heart. Remember that you're carrying yourself. That whole aspect of the relationship still exists. It's just evolving now, Exactly. And I feel that we do have to sit in retrospect and see what can we take with us from that relationship. What worked, what didn't work, what was good, what didn't feel so good, and allow those things to guide us into the next relationship. Okay, what do I want in my next relationship with someone? Yeah. What are the qualities that I want to share with my partner? And take everything as a lesson. Our days are our story. Our life is our story. And we get to create it. We get to write it. God gave us free will. But how can we cultivate elements of the dream or the future that we thought we were going to have into the now? We have to ask ourselves, what aspects can we take with us? What are still things that you still want, that you can still take with you? Not everything has to die with that relationship. Oh, yeah. You don't have to die with that relationship. You evolve, you move on. You're, what is it, like Super Mario, like you level up. I just have like the little noise in my head. Yeah, you level up. So what would you say, what is the first step in moving on from a breakup, or what advice would you give someone who's in the midst of a breakup right now?
Well, I think in the context that you were sharing right now, I had something in my mind to share on that. That advice that I'd give to move on from a breakup is like I said, like really honoring the space that's taking place afterwards. Somebody shared on here, you know, sometimes it's really hard to let go. And it is. Sometimes it can be really hard because, like you were saying, you know, we really have this dream of how it should look, you know, and then and it's grieving that it didn't occur. And it's evaluating things before moving on into something else. Like, I think it's honoring the, you know, taking a step back and reflecting on what did take place, like, and what could we take responsibility for, like, in the relationship. What could we take responsibility for about who we were being in that former relationship? What is it, you know, what is like our values that will never die regardless? Like, that's the part that you take with you that you were talking about, right? Like, what I stand for then is what I stand for now still. Is it really? It's okay. Then then you get to learn more about yourself and really take what worked and what didn't work with you. You want to take what didn't work with you too, because you want that awareness when you're going into another relationship. You don't want to bring your past with you. You Absolutely. Don't want to do that. So I am like definitely a proponent of taking time when you break up to just, you know, again, grieve and taking time to reflect what worked, what didn't work, what could I take responsibility for in my former relationship. And it's not to make you wrong, right? It's not that. It's really just to be responsible about how
to make you aware.
Forward. Yeah, because right. With that awareness, then if you're not aware of like how you were showing up, that was an impact. And maybe it wasn't necessarily what led to the breakup, but it impacted the relationship. And sometimes those things build up and then a breakup happens, right? So if you don't take responsibility for what could have, your way of being that impacted a relationship, you take that with you. Then you repeat the same thing. Then you see people that are like, they're complaining about, man, I keep getting to same type of thing keeps happening. The same, you know, same relationship pattern happens. Different people, same thing occurs, right? How are we taking responsibility for what occurred? How are we bringing that awareness into what we're creating in the future?
Right.
So that's really my biggest advice is that, like, to keep it simple. There's so many different things, but like, again, like, you want to take time to reflect before you start moving forward and connecting with yourself and honoring, like, where am I? What's my, even like connecting with your body? Like, what is it that my body is requesting from me?
I love what you said. You said to ask yourself, how did I show up in that relationship? And be honest with yourself. The longest relationship you're ever going to have is the one that you have with yourself. So if there's anybody that you're going to be real with, make sure it's you.
Exactly.
You know, because, I mean, how can you expect anybody else to be honest with you if you're not honest with yourself?
So yeah, it's interesting. We have so many blind spots we don't even realize that are there, right? It's sometimes like it's easy for, let's say, for myself to see a friend experiencing something like, oh, look at that. Not sure about that. But they're not seeing it themselves. Same thing with me. I know I have blind spots, right? And I get to be aware of what those blind spots are. That's why it's important to look back and see, okay, what was in my blind spot? Now that I'm not in the relationship anymore, like how was I being there? You know, was I even operating the way that was, you know, aligned to my values? Was I operating in the way that I said I would when I committed to being in that relationship? So yeah, it's really definitely important.
So, you know, I think that all falls under like self-love. Having self-love for yourself is saying, okay, what do I need to be okay? What do I need for my happiness? And people have to understand that your happiness might not look like somebody else's happiness too. Sometimes I feel like we try to live up to expectations for whatever reason. And we have to understand that we're all different, and what will make one person happy doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to make you happy. And taking that time to reflect and taking that time to really have a relationship with yourself and get to know yourself in the ins and outs will allow to answer all of those types of questions. And so then you're going to be better, well-rounded to move forward with somebody else.
Yeah, definitely. So if you think, I'm thinking about when I was younger, like, you know, early 20s. And I mean, I was already in a serious relationship at that point, 21. And how much of what did I know then that actually was like, this is, you know, I didn't know anything. Like, I knew a lot, but I didn't know everything. I certainly did not know enough to know that I was making some really big mistakes, right? So, and yeah. I think it happens to a lot of us, right? And sometimes, you know, like it sucks, but, you know, sometimes we experience these things to get to learn a bit more about ourselves and be even a better person in our next relationship. I mean, I I don't think it's an easy answer, right, to say that that's what it is, but sometimes it is. It's like what they say, okay, things happen for a reason, right? Yeah, it happens for a reason only if you stop and pay attention to what that reason might be. Then you can do something about it if you're paying attention to it. So, and when we're younger, we sometimes don't know.
Can you explain, I know in Love Camp, you guys talk about empowering beliefs. Can you go over that so people understand what that means, having empowering beliefs?
Yeah, so this is not empowering beliefs. When people hear it, they might think, oh, what is that? Affirmations? Also, you write like really positive stuff about yourself? No, actually, no, that's not what I'm referring to. So it's really like paying attention to first of all, to have these empowering beliefs that you live with. It's being aware of like the disempowering beliefs that you live with that are caused by things that happened in your past. We created, let's say something happened when I was 4 years old. True story, right? I was locked in a closet in DR. I was in DR at the time. And I felt like I was there for half the day in a dark room. It was actually a dark room, but in my head, I made it like a closet. And I couldn't believe, how could these people lock me in a closet at 4 years old? Right? And so I created this idea about my life at that point. And what I really thought was like, people don't care about me. The world doesn't care. I can't count on people. Like, they just left me here for hours. I fell asleep crying. I was a little girl. And lots of other things happened in life that kind of solidified that idea that nobody really cares. I can't count on people. And I became super independent, right? At 16, I was like, I'm buying myself a car. I'm getting a job. I'm going to do this and that. And I'm going to make sure that I don't need anybody because I can't count on anybody in the world. Okay. And, that was a disempowering belief. What happens to somebody, and I'm sure there's many of you that are listening right now that has this belief that's like super independent. You don't ask for help. You end up trying to do everything by yourself. And let's think about like the biggest organizations, the most successful companies out there. They don't do anything by themselves. They don't. The CEO creates the idea and then he hires a bunch of people to do things for them. And here we are trying to do everything by ourselves because something happened to us when we were little that caused us to create this story that I can't count on people. So why would I even try? Because if I try to, then that just means that I'm weak or that I'm not strong and that I should be doing it by myself. I need to be superwoman, right? So let me just do everything by myself. And then as a result, I could tell you I was single for many years, because I don't need anybody. Why would I need No, I don't need that. And so that was a disempowering belief because what was the result of that? I mean, I'm using myself as an example, but everyone here listening, think about what disempowering belief you might have that you created as a result of some sort of experience you had in your past. All right. And the impact of that for me, when I got really, really present to like, I'm not even living the life I really wanted, several years back. I got present to this was occurring. This disempowering belief based on some story I created many years ago was showing up as me being a single woman only by myself for many years with 2 kids and deciding that was going to be my life. I can't even believe I decided that's what it was going to be. I really did. I made a declaration like I'm always going to be a single mom because I don't need anybody and I'm not going to deal with that, craziness. I'm not. And what was left, I was empty. I was feeling lonely. I was like not being authentic actually in the world. I wasn't being myself.
That's not what you really wanted.
Of course not. So I had to get real with me. I had to really connect with like, Virginia, what is it that you really want? I am filled with love. I want to be in a relationship. I want that.
Right.
Now what do I get to create in the space of my beliefs? I started to pay attention to, okay, let me find evidence in real life that my story I created is false. It's not true. And I really actually made this an experiment for myself.
Sometimes you're looking for something to make those thoughts correct because
of course.
Jessica posted up she said that even thoughts can become a habit that we have to break. So we can have these negative thoughts and we want to like say that we're right. What we're thinking is 100% correct. I'm going to prove it to myself. You see?
Of course.
There you go. I was right. XYZ just happened. But, in order we ask ourselves, how do we know if we can trust somebody? And I don't think that there's a blueprint to that. There's no way that you can say 100% that person I can trust. The only way that you can trust somebody is by trusting them.
Yeah.
There's no other way around it, and you have to trust yourself. And in order to trust yourself, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to move in a place of honesty with you. Like I said before, if you're not honest with yourself, how do you expect other people to be honest with you?
Yeah, you do got to start with yourself. It's funny you said that the formula. Actually, it's funny. I was trying to create a formula around trust. I think it was 2016. I did a talk at Nerd Night, and it was actually about trust. I was like, okay, this could be the thing with trust. There might be a way actually to start discerning, right? We actually build our level of discernment. How do we discern whether we can trust or not in specific areas of our lives and in relationships, and with who? And there actually is a way actually to discern how much we can trust and what we can trust with. It's not always a black and white, like yes or no.
Right.
I think people get lost in that, because then they're like, there's the fear of, well, if I trust completely, then I might get burned again. But you get to actually create dialogue and conversations that support you discerning what works and what doesn't work. And actually you get to speak up. This is what you want. This is what you're standing for. So
absolutely, that again, to your boundaries and,
exactly,
and what it is you want and you don't want.
Exactly.
That's very true.
So there's that.
Yeah, and having compassion with yourself. I don't think that we have enough compassion for ourselves and what it is that we go through or that we've gone through. So I think that having that compassion is very important in the healing process.
That is, honestly, I'm going to take my time with that one, because I completely agree with you. There's nothing worse than like deciding that this is not working out, and whatever happened, let's say it was related to trauma, that you were bonding with this person for like years. I mean, I've heard of stories. I actually had a client that, for 5 years, same relationship, kept going back. And it could be so horrific when you decide this is enough is enough. Or maybe they decided enough is enough and I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go with somebody else. And then you're left feeling like, I can't believe I put up with this. I can't believe I spent that much time. I can't believe I did. Like, shaming yourself for it. It is the worst thing you could do for yourself. Be still with the fact that you're human, and like you experience what you experience at that moment, and that's a done deal. So that already happened. You know what I mean?
Lo que pasó,
right? I was gonna go into Spanish a little bit there, right? Yeah, it already happened, and you're in a new place now. And we don't have to live in our past. And I completely agree, being compassionate with yourself. You're a human being having this experience. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. And you know what? That's okay that it happened the way it happened. Like right now, it's happening as it needs to happen. And you get to be in a different place. You get to create what supports you. And continue to love yourself for actually discovering, for being in the space of discovery. So
I love what you said. How simple, but how deep and how profound it is just to be still with yourself. Be still. How often do we do that? How often do we take the time out for ourselves to just be? Especially like in a type of situation where you're grieving, you're lost, you're confused, you're having all of these feelings and emotions, to have compassion for yourself and be still. Feel it. Feel what you're feeling. Feel your feelings. There's no way around it. Feel what you're feeling. Let that lump in your throat go so you can move on.
Yeah, and don't believe that the feeling is who you are. Like,
yes,
I'm sad. I must be a sad, depressed person. No, you're sad. And you get to feel sad.
It's an emotion.
Now. Yeah, it's not who you are. You're not your feelings.
Yes. You feel your feelings. Your feelings are not you.
Exactly.
I'd like to open this up now if anybody has any questions that they want to ask or something that they want to talk about. This would be a great time as you guys start with the questions or start thinking about if there's anything that's on your mind. I wrote a piece that I would like to share. It's called Bury and Release. There are bruises under layers of epidermis, invisible to the naked eye. Tucked within years of denial and oppressive behavior, I pretended I wasn't hurting. Cheshire grins, smiles, and belly laughs, mimicking what once was. You left me at the bridge of what was and what is. Indecision sprung from fear of the unknown, afraid to let go of something that was gone. Tug of war. Who was going to pull the cord? Left in the darkness, alone and lost, closing my eyes for insight, feeling what needed to be felt. Finally, allowing rainstorms to form on your very cheeks, heart heaving from loss and grief. May our love rest in peace. Time to bury and release. When you're left with no choice, you take the chance on yourself. A leap of faith, allowing healing into places that only knew pain. Replenishing source, filling my cup with self-love once more. Home.
Love it. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just reading what people are writing. Shadow work is a must in order to manifest and heal. Our society doesn't leave much room for either gender for different reasons, the space to be with yourself. That is so true. That's why we have to make time for ourselves. Don't let society tell you how to spend your time. This is your life. And, you know, we use the phrase, I think I said it last time in part 1, we spend time. It's a way, our time is currency. We're paying with our time for a lot of different things. Don't let society or somebody else tell you how you're going to spend your time, because it's non-refundable. Mm-hmm. You're not getting it back. So make sure that you stand in your truth, like we were saying earlier, and claim that time as yours. You know, someone talked about dealing with narcissism. You know, yes, I feel like some relationships we come across are with people who are narcissistic, but learning how to identify that, like you were saying, having that discernment in someone's character as to, you know, who we can trust and how much we can trust with that person. But the fact that you even know that they're a narcissist is a great, you know, great way to know that right then and there, that's not something that you want to deal with.
Yeah, I would say to that, just take your time when you're getting to know new people, you know? There's no need to go too fast. You can. There's no judgment if you do. Sometimes it works. But again, it's like, you really get to know somebody. You get to meet the people that know them too. You know, you really get to know somebody like that with time and knowing the people that they know. Being introduced to their best friends and their family members and everybody and their mama.
Yes.
So you make a decision.
And the only way that you can really know somebody is with time as well, because then you see them in different situations, different aspects. How do they interact with the people that mean the most to you? And all of that just takes time.
Yeah.
So, and if something's supposed to last, something's meant to last, what's the rush?
Exactly.
What's the rush? We have forever, right?
You know, it's interesting. I used to say, you got to wait until you have your one big argument. Then you really know. Right? Like, at least then you know, like, how they manage the argument with you. Like, what's your communication style when that type of stuff happens? So anyways, That's just interesting. That's what came up for me right now. You can take your time and discover people. But yeah, a narcissist, you know, being in a relationship with a narcissist could be very difficult. I have not experienced that, but you know, I've seen the impact of that. And it's debilitating. It could be very debilitating to someone's self-esteem. Yeah, so definitely. Again, going back to what you were saying, like being compassionate when there is a space of discovery, like, wow, this is what I'm actually experiencing. Because sometimes it's like you don't even realize you're experiencing abuse, you know? When that happens, it's typically that. It's like you get blindsided. You know, just being compassionate with yourself in that space.
Yes, definitely. And like we've been saying, nothing that's worth it is going to be easy. You know, a lot of things that we have to face are going to be hard. But just because, you know, it's some situation or some type of relationship made someone happy doesn't mean that it's going to make you happy. So you have to be honest with yourself as an individual, not your neighborhood or your family or your cultural values, you. And that that can take place in the time of being still. So we have to just carve that time out, find that time, make it, create it for you, because you matter, you're important, and your happiness is important. And the only way that you're going to reach that happiness is if you're still and you ask yourself, what are you doing? What do you want? Who are you?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Certainly. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be hard, actually.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, like, it doesn't have to be hard. None of it actually has to be hard. It could feel difficult or new, right? And things that are new don't feel very comfortable. It's just, I mean, it's like you were saying, like, you can go to the gym, like, you know, it's something you want to get done and it's uncomfortable. And sometimes the newness of, like, breaking free or being on your own, or even starting a new relationship after so much time of not being in one, like, it could feel really odd and uncomfortable. But it's not to say that it should be difficult, like super difficult. And if it is, it's just evaluating, like, is it that it's difficult, or is it just that it's new? You know, really distinguish, like, it's really important, because then if not, we live out of our fear, you know, of, I don't want to experience that again. And I'm not going to step into a space of being in a relationship. But what is the result of actually freeing yourself of what's holding you back from the past to step into partnerships that support not just you, but them, and not just you and them, but the people that are connected to you and them. Because the more we are really connected and finding a way to, you know, have love and affinity with one another, it really does transfer to other people. Just like negative groups that start talking about negative, it starts to transfer, like, there's an impact to you being in that, to you being in the space of loving and being open to love again, and being in the space of healing yourself so that you can be in a relationship. And the impact really does expand. That's
so true. You know, like, everything reverberates in the universe, I feel. You know, it's like if you're in a cave and you yell, you're going to hear an echo, or like the ripple effect in the water when you throw a pebble. Whatever we say or we do in our actions reverberates through the universe. So what type of life, like you said, do we want to have for ourselves, for the ones that we love, and the people that we don't even know, just for humanity as a whole? What part are we playing in that? So I think that was really good. That was really important. So I just have one last quote that I want to share with you guys. Virginia, this has been so awesome. It's so, like, you're so amazing, and you have so much to share and to give the world. And I am just so happy to share this space with you, and so happy that you are here with me and with all of us tonight.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here with you. And I mean, like I said in the beginning, you've created this beautiful space. I can't wait to have more soul sessions. Thank you.
Yay! Thank you so much. So I just want to end with this quote. Everything you want is on the other side of letting go. You don't hold on because you like to hurt. You hold on because you need certainty. Because the pain is familiar and predictable. Learning to live in a place of unfamiliarity, but hopefulness, helps you move on to the next chapter. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I cannot wait to see you again. Please, if there's anything that resonated with you, DM us. I hope you took notes. I hope that you enjoyed our conversation tonight, and I look forward to next month for the next soul sessions. Let's see, if you guys have any ideas on what topics we should touch on, please feel free to DM and let me know. So this is Natalie and Virginia. Good night.
Bye, guys.